Beyond the Echo Cavern by BreAnna Teschendorf, Chapter 23, Gabe's Discovery. The underwater passageway had led them into a huge underground cavern full of waterfalls, and this time the water itself was glowing. Gabe was right that they didn't need light in there. Water was streaming from the roof, from the walls, in many different places, and it was all sorts of wonderful colors. It flowed from wherever it landed after its long fall into a narrow stream in the middle of the cavern where the waters did not mix together but remained separate. It looked like a rainbow running down the middle of the room. The rainbow, growing wider and more colorful as each new stream flowed into it, disappeared at the far end of the cavern, where it gushed into a hole in the floor. Some of the waterfalls were more trickling than flowing, and as they fell onto turquoise and jade-colored rocks that lined the cavern walls, they made funny musical sounds. The room was full of all kinds of fruity smells. It felt warm and very humid. There were giant flowers growing all over the place that had the color of the water that they were growing near. The flowers had the consistency of a mushroom to the touch. At the center of each flower was a hollow shaped like a bowl full of sticky sweet nectar. The children soon discovered that this nectar was the source of the sweet smells filling the room. It was one of the most wonderful sights the children had ever seen. Although Gabe had already seen the room, he was amazed again at how splendid it was. He and Annika, in their awe, forgot completely that Charlie couldn't see. They stood beside the small pool they had just climbed out of and stared at the gorgeous scene in silence. Charlie was also silent, listening to the sounds of the water, wondering where he was. "You were not wrong, Gabe," said Annika, moving to him and giving his shoulder a little squeeze. "This is a sight for sore eyes." "Then do these sore eyes a favor and tell me what you can see, darn it, Annika," said Charlie, suddenly feeling angry with his companions for leaving him in suspense. "Oh, sorry, Charlie," she said, looking at Gabe and clenching her jaw comically about their mistake. Gabe smiled at her and laughed in two breaths through his nose. "Waterfalls, Charlie," Gabe began. He described the whole scene to him. "Something so incredible, and I can't see it," Charlie fumed and stomped his feet. "I want to see it. I want my sight back. You guys get to be in the light and see the beautiful things, and I'm still stuck in darkness. It isn't fair. I saved you, Annika, and this is my reward? I'm blind? My eyes are not getting better?" Charlie was waving his hands around as he spoke. He also started pacing a few steps forward and back as he ranted, his voice getting louder and louder. Forgetting how near they were to the little pool, he accidentally stepped into it with one foot and down he went. The pool was so narrow that when he fell forward, he hit his chin on the ground on the other side. There was a horrible crunch. Gabe and Annika both had a sickening feeling in their stomachs as they watched him fall. "Charlie!" they exclaimed in unison, reaching out for him with their hands to try to catch him, but of course it was too late. "Ow!" he cried in horrible agony, laying on the ground on his stomach, both legs still in the water. He began to drag himself out. Gabe and Annika rushed forward to help him. "Here, let's lay him on these flowers," said Annika. They helped pull him over to two big purple flowers that were close together, and they laid him over the petals on his back. Tears streamed down Charlie's face, and his jaw looked disgustingly displaced. He tried to open his mouth to say something, but he couldn't. A long, horrible groan came out. Gabe and Annika both welled up into tears of compassion at the awful sight of him. Again, they forgot that Charlie could not see them as they stood over him, looking down with compassion on their faces. "What can we do?" they desperately pleaded. When Charlie started waving his hands around in panic and making to stand up, Anna took one of his hands and gripped it tightly. "Oh, Charlie, don't worry. We are here. We will do whatever we can for you. We are here." "Yeah," gulped Gabe, taking Charlie's other hand. Charlie held tightly to Gabe and Annika, who continued to soothe him and assure him he would feel better soon. They continued thus for a long time, until Charlie stopped crying and grew calm. Their bodies felt stiff from sitting in the same position for so long. "Maybe we should give him something to drink," said Gabe after a while, looking around at the water. They were sitting nearest to a purple waterfall. It smelled distinctly like grape bubble gum. It smelled so delicious that, although Gabe was concerned about Charlie, his mouth was watering for a drink of the wonderful water, or to dip his finger into the nectar of the flower, which was on the other side of Charlie, closer to Annika. His eyes kept wandering from his patient to the lovely liquids with longing. Charlie shook his head emphatically to Gabe's maybe. He was afraid of having something to drink. His jaw ached so badly. He didn't want it to be bumped, and he felt that he couldn't move. He was stiff with hurt, pulsing all over, but especially in his knees where they had hit, and in his chest where it had banged. "Well, maybe we could get something to drink," said Gabe timidly, a few minutes later. "Is it okay, Charlie?" Annika asked him, looking down, her eyes all concern. He was still for a few minutes, and then he nodded his head yes. "We won't go far, and we will talk to you every few minutes, so you know we are still near. If you need us, just wave your hands. We will watch you all the time." Charlie nodded again, and he felt a tiny bit better, having this unasked for proof that Gabe and Annika cared about him and would indeed stay with him. His fear of being left alone in the cave, blind, was worse than all his physical ailing. At first he strained his ears with all his might, listening to them talk, trying to judge how far away they were. After a while, he stopped listening so hard and got lost in his own thoughts. Then, as it often happens to the best of us, when we have our eyes closed and are alone with our thoughts, Charlie fell asleep. Gabe and Annika weren't very far away from Charlie. They were just a little ways away, kneeling over the pool of purple water that smelled like grapes. They tasted it and loved it, and then quickly scampered to a purple flower. They tasted the nectar. It was all so glorious, but so sweet that a finger's dip was satisfactory. After that, they went to the next closest waterfall that was blue and smelled like fresh baked vanilla cupcakes. They tried it too, and you guessed it, the blue water was fabulous. Gabe climbed onto one of the large flowers and found that it was not only spongy, but springy. He jumped from bloom to bloom as if he were on a trampoline. Down the cavern he flew, springing from one flower to the next. He narrowly avoided crashing into the gooey centers with his feet, laughing and his arms flying high in the air. Annika jumped only a little bit and stayed close to Charlie, keeping an eye on him. He didn't move at all. She had an inspiration based on her many yummy experiences in Pergamayan and tasted a bite of a spongy flower petal. It was like eating a dense, moist cake. She instructed Gabe to try some flour too. He did, and in his delight, he ran around trying all the different flowers. Annika investigated the fascinating, many-colored river flowing down the middle of the room. She put her hands into it and swished it around, but the colors didn't mix together. They just swirled and then separated back into their original formation. On the floor of the river, she could see strangely shaped shells. She was just about to go wading in to try to fish some out when Charlie let out a loud yell. Annika raced to his side, and Gabe came bouncing back over the flower tops. There was no need to hurry, though. They quickly realized that Charlie was only dreaming. And that's the end of chapter 23. God bless you.